The Chargers defense has been a revelation under defensive coordinator Jesse Minter as the top unit in the league, but unfortunately, according to Jim Harbaugh, he doesn't think he's going to be sticking around in 2025.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the Chargers defense has been absolutely fantastic, and it has been a complete 180 from last year. And unfortunately, that means that defensive coordinator Jesse Minter might have already impressed his way into a head coaching opportunity in next year's cycle. And coaching definitely matters, Daniel, because the 2023 draft class is definitely looking like it's firing on all cylinders, and the Chargers better be ready because their toughest 5-game stretch is upon us.
It definitely is, and the Chargers we are going to learn a lot about over these next 5 weeks. But today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. David, it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And we have a great one here from Grant Shaner, who says, buy or sell Jesse Minter will leave the Chargers for a head coaching job next year. Jim Harbaugh just said on the Pat McAfee show, we'll have to enjoy Jesse while we have him. I have a feeling that he might be a head coach next year. David, this has been our fear since the beginning. I mean, we knew that if Jesse Minter really could turn what was a very bad unit in 2023 into a really good unit in 2024, there would be a chance he would leave. But I don't think I ever really took it seriously until right now. Like, it feels like it's starting to get a lot more real. I think I'm still selling it for now, but like Jim Harbaugh also said in that Pat McAfee interview, I'll be the first to say it, Jesse Minter will be a head coach in the NFL next year. So he was very plain about it. And it's hard to know, hey, is this just somebody kind of doing right by his coach, getting his name out there, throwing his hat into the ring? Or is there a real chance it's a one and done for Jesse Minter?
Yeah, this is an uncomfortable conversation to have because it just feels
Sure.
like the Chargers can never have nice things. Whenever they have a good thing going, it just gets ripped from right underneath them, and they have to go try to figure it out. But for Jesse Minter here, a first-time NFL defensive coordinator, 41 years old, I really honestly truly think that these next 5 or 6 games could truly determine whether he stays with the Chargers or if he gets that NFL head coaching opportunity, because how he's able to navigate the best offenses in the NFL and how his defense fares against those offenses may sway those teams that are, inevitably going to be looking for a head coach either one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it flatly right now. If Jesse Minter holds the next 5 opponents that he has under 20 points, and the streak is still going after this 5-game stretch against the toughest, maybe the toughest teams they're going to play on their schedule, which we'll talk about later, yeah, I'll guarantee he's going to have a head coaching job in 2025. There are a couple of things that are working in the Chargers' favor, including the spectacular failure of one Brandon Staley, right? A cautionary tale of what happened when the Chargers, after Brandon Staley had led the Rams in his first year as a defensive coordinator to the best defense in the league. What happened after that? He gets a head coaching job with the Chargers. I mean, also, they had Aaron Donald and I believe Jalen Ramsey at the time and had some really good players as well. So that factored into it, but that went up in flames. I think the other thing that goes in the Chargers' favor right now is that he's not an offensive coach, because I do think there is, at least in the league, some kind of under-the-table discussion, maybe not even, that you have to have an offensive coach to be successful, that you want to find the Matt LaFleur to go with your Jordan Love, that you want the Kyle Shanahan to go with your Brock Purdy, the Sean McVay to your Matt Stafford, and so on and so forth. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. That plays in their favor. I think the other thing that plays in their favor, David, is Ben Johnson, right? It feels like he easily could have had a head coaching job either of the last 2 years. They were a top 5 rushing team and a top 5 passing team last year. They're doing it with Jared Goff, who just came off a 5-interception game, and they still won it, showing you just how good of a team they are all around. But he stayed, right? He felt something brewing. He's waiting for the right situation. It's something I don't think coordinators do enough. Wait for the right situation. And I think the problem is like, if Jesse Minter sticks around and he has the 15th best unit next year, what is the interest in him if he loses a couple of his best players and they don't perform? So if he has the opportunity, there's a good chance he takes it. I guarantee you he will get interviews. He will get multiple interviews this year. But David, I don't know how he couldn't, with just how stark the difference has been from what that 2023 defense was with Brandon Staley and now what this unit looks like this year.
Yeah, just to set the table here, in 2023, the Chargers are 24th in points allowed at 23.4, 28th in yards allowed, 362.9, 30th in passing yards allowed, 17th in rush yards allowed. In 2024, they are the number one scoring defense in the NFL, giving up a measly 13.1 points per game. And the next closest team to them is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 16.2, 3 points better. Also, they've given up the least amount of touchdowns in the NFL, at only 10 through 9 games. They are 6th in yards allowed, 6th in passing yards allowed, 9th in rushing yards allowed, and 11th in takeaways. It is a true 180, an absolutely unbelievable turnaround from one year to the next, with limited cap space, signing guys that needed second chances, and getting them to perform better than they ever have at any point in their NFL careers. That right there is the epitome of coaching matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it also just kind of shows you that not every coordinator is meant to be a head coach, and some guys are better off just being coordinators. I also think the other part of that is, with Jesse Minter's defense specifically, how much better of a teacher he is, right? How much better these guys understand it, how much better they're playing fundamentally. It just all looks so much better.
Yeah, it's crisp.
You don't see a lot of broken coverages, like you said, right? 10 touchdowns this year. We've seen 2 with like a minute left in garbage time over the last 2 weeks. Yeah. It's hard to even count those, right? You also just look at just how explosive teams were against Brandon Staley last year. 61 20-plus yard passes given up by Brandon Staley's defense last year.
Jesus.
This year they've had 23 20-plus yard passes. So, half the season left. They're going to be much, much better than that. Last year, 48 sacks, which was not a bad number, led by Khalil Mack, kind of putting the team on his back with 17 by himself. This year, they're at 31 sacks. They're on pace to blow that away and get to close to 60, right? 18 sacks in their last 3 games. They've been on fire. Joey Bosa has played like 20 snaps in those. Khalil Mack didn't even play last game. So, 13 takeaways this year, 21 takeaways last year. So they're on pace to beat that by quite a bit. This one's really funny. So far, the Chargers have given up 3 40-plus yard passing plays, and we remember all of them, right? Like, it was that play to Calvin Austin in the Steelers game, obviously Xavier Worthy play, and then last week you had the blown coverage play.
Yep.
Last year, the Chargers gave up 14-plus plays, 14 40-plus yard plays. I mean,
that was pretty brutal.
That's insane. But
brutal.
We do have another buy or sell here from one of our favorites. Chris Sayi is getting on the show today saying, buy or sell, the Chargers' ability to adjust during the season and mid-game is the biggest upgrade from the Chargers teams in year past. David, are you buying or selling that?
Actually, I'm going to sell it. I do feel like it's extremely important that they have found the ability to adjust in-game. But to me, I think the biggest improvement over last year is the upgrade in the culture and the leadership. I mean, they have a real, true leader and a guy that has had a calling card for building a culture and getting everyone to buy in. It's clear that the Chargers players are bought into Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's hard to buy just one thing in this regard because there's so many upgrades. It's hard to kind of parse what the biggest one is and what's had the biggest impact on the Chargers being so much better. But I would say if it's not this, which I do think that has been great, right? The adjustments have been good in season and before. Wouldn't have thought so for a while for the offense when they couldn't score at all in the second half. But that seems to have been remedied to a certain extent. I would say the more impressive thing to me is how prepared this team is and how they game plan for each opponent. I mean, yeah, they had a broken coverage last week. We have not seen Jesse Minter's defense show up to a game where they felt like they did not have the game plan to go against that offense, right? Like, I think they've given up 2 first-quarter touchdowns all season long. And last week it was a broken play. this team is so much more well prepared for the teams that they're going up against, and also so much better at executing what that game plan is. It's just night and day difference. And they're also just the fundamentals. They're better tacklers now. They're better conditioned. They're more healthy. So many big upgrades, but I agree, Chris, that the adjustments and the mid-season adjustments are definitely way up there as far as why this team has been so much better this year and has already surpassed what their total wins were in 2023. Which, David, I had said on one of those other buy or sell shows. I said it would be the Titans game where they surpassed it. You were a homer and said it was going to be the Browns game. We all remember. But we still have more great stuff to get into, including how this current coaching staff has basically saved the 2023 Chargers draft class and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Ultimate GM because Chargers fans remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM. Well, they're back and they've added an amazing new game mode I need to tell you guys about because the game has you step into the shoes of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory. But they now have a new head coach career mode. So on top of getting to build your dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring coaching staffs, now you will get to also call the offensive plays during games as well. This is the only game I played on my phone in years. I love Ultimate Football GM. Additionally, you can dig the new tools that you can work with, such as individual training camps, upgraded negotiation system. It's very, very in-depth. It does actually give you a pretty good feel of what goes on in the day-to-day life of a GM and the decisions they have to make. It's also completely free, has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to on planes is great, I found out as well. And here's a special offer for Locked On fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure to get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage that you'll need when you want to create your dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com, ultimategm.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. I was going to tell you guys about FanDuel because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And for this one, David, it should be an absolute banger. On Sunday Night Football, the Chargers are still 1.5-point favorites on FanDuel to win this game. And a game that would essentially end the Bengals season. I think they're going to come out scrapping. I think it's going to be a tough game. We'll talk about this tough stretch the Chargers have. But if you guys want to get on that action, just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, let's get into more of these Chargers buy or sells, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions that we've seen after the Chargers' third straight win in a row. And that is when things start to fly around. And I imagine during these next 5 weeks, there's going to be even more overreactions to talk about. But I did see a lot of people talking about the 2023 draft class and specifically their performance in this last game, where obviously Daiyan Henley was great. Quentin Johnston gets into the end zone for the second week in a row. Darius Davis has a big return. Tuli Tuipulotu has just been on fire over the last 3 weeks. I think I saw Tyler Schoon posting about this as well. That's one of the things that inspired this buy or sell today, and I couldn't agree or buy this more, David. I mean, there was a lot of question marks. It was very hard to feel good about that 2023 draft class in 2023, but now in 2024, there are a lot of impact players that are making their, really, really showing up for them this year.
I reiterate once again, coaching matters, and they have been able to extract the most out of all of these guys. Quentin Johnston, 2 touchdowns. He has 5 already, and there's about 8 games left in the season. Tuli Tuipulotu had 4.5 sacks all of last season. He has 5.5 sacks in his last 3 games alone.
Yeah.
Darius Davis is a stud last year. He's still a stud this year. When he's healthy, he has been a big-time returner, and he's been able to flip the field. I think one of my favorites here is Scott Matlock. To the Chargers turning Scott Matlock into a two-way player, to where, he's been, honestly, to me, getting better and better every week as a fullback, getting to his spots. As long as he has some open space, he's really blowing people up and really making an impact, making a positive impact with his role as a fullback, as well as, providing snaps on special teams and also on defense occasionally on the defensive line. So for him to be able to utilize in all of those ways and really be an asset to the football team is a credit to himself and to the coaching staff. But altogether, just getting the most out of these guys, putting them in positions to have success. And then even Daiyan Henley, I didn't even mention, 83 tackles so far up to this point in the season. He's been an absolute machine. It's been really fun to watch him fly around and do exactly what we thought he was going to do when we saw him get drafted. And in that limited playing time last year, it's been a wonderful thing to watch.
Absolutely. And also, first of all, put some respect on Scott Matlock's game. Three-way player, right? Not just a two-way player, but a three-way player playing in every facet. And I mean, yeah, for him specifically, for them to kind of turn to a guy that didn't really turn heads as a defensive lineman last year, but obviously they can tell the athleticism, tell he could have a role. To find a new role for him, I thought was awesome. But yeah, Daiyan Henley, like he's playing like a Pro Bowl linebacker right now. Like that's just as easy, of a thing to say as you can. I mean, Quentin Johnston looks like a completely different player. But the Daiyan Henley one of it, like that dude was losing snaps to Nick Neiman last year. That dude was not able to sniff the field behind two below average linebackers in Eric Kendricks and Kenneth Murray last year.
One of the worst coaching decisions ever.
But it, like also just you see the kind of dynamic because it's like what was one of the first things that comes out after Brandon Staley gets fired? He didn't tell Daiyan Henley happy birthday when he was telling other guys happy birthday. Such a dumb small thing, but a microcosm of what the problem was. Like he wasn't one of Brandon Staley's guys, so he wasn't getting on the field. Feels like we're like putting feathers in Tom Telesco's cap as well. I mean, by talking about this, because obviously some of these guys can play. Darius Davis, is an all-pro player.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Tuli Tuipulotu at this trajectory makes a Pro Bowl at some point in his career. I would be shocked if Daiyan Henley doesn't make a Pro Bowl at this point in his career. And Max Duggan, is probably a future Hall of Famer. So the 2023 draft class looking great. But no, I mean, to get the contributions they are this year, they wouldn't be where they're at unless they found a way to get more out of these guys that were drafted and some parts even discarded to a certain extent. But let's get to this next buy or sell here from David Drogemeyer, who says, buy or sell, DJ Chark is wide receiver 5 for the Chargers in 2024. David, 1 snap on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we were all excited to see DJ Chark make his 2024 debut. I don't think anybody, and I mean anybody, expected him to play one single snap, and it was a running play. I think that's what I remember him doing was just blocking. So it's insane to me that, even return specialist Darius Davis had 2 offensive snaps, one more than DJ Chark had.
He touched the ball both times, too. He had a catch and a run.
Yeah.
Darius Davis did.
Yeah. And then even Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor with 18 snaps. And hey, I got to give Jalen Reagor some credit. I feel like he's probably earned a little bit of his playing time. He's been decent. He's been decent. So, it's a big surprise to me. It really is. But as of right now, the way that the snaps have shooken out, I have to buy it. He is wide receiver 5. And the way Jim Harbaugh put it, he's just, hey, I like the mix that we have at wide receiver, and I don't really want to disrupt that.
Yeah, well, also shout out to Jalen Reagor, who had the best catch you'll ever see that goes for a 3-yard loss. I mean, probably the worst pass of the day by Justin Herbert, honestly. Jalen Reagor, one hand, picks it up off the turf and turns it only into a 3-yard loss. Might have even been a fumble. It was pretty close to being a backwards pass on that one. Justin Herbert just getting rid of it. So, great play. Yeah, I mean, it's surprising, man. I mean, like, this tells you something. This was a dude who was a starter coming out of training camp. He won the starting job over Quentin Johnston, right? It was him, Joshua Palmer, and Ladd McConkey who seemed to be the top 3 receivers going into the year.
Yeah.
He gets 1 snap in this game, and it's not even just the 1 snap, right? This is the quote from Jim Harbaugh, per Daniel Popper, who had it in his article. He said, after asking about him only getting 1 snap, he said, it's more of an affirmation of what the receiver room is doing. I'm just super pleased at how those guys are playing, and there wasn't an opportunity to take one of them out of the rotation. That's crazy, right? I mean, considering where we came from in this, right? Like, to hear that, I mean, to give those props to the wide receivers, I think is a huge testament to how much those guys have improved. I think also it kind of affirms that DJ Chark isn't going to be the savior of this offense, right? A lot of people were hoping for that. A lot of people are hoping and I still think his downfield stretching ability can bring value to this offense. But, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when Simi Fehoko comes back, because you know what DJ Chark didn't do in this game? He didn't play a single special team snap. So if you're getting 1 snap offensively, if you're getting 0 snaps on special teams, are we going to see DJ Chark being inactive in some of these
Seems
games,
very possible.
I mean, Simi Fehoko's on injured reserve, so it's not something we would even see for the next several weeks. But, Darius Davis is your special teams return man. Jalen Reagor gives you some snaps on special teams outside of being a return guy. Like, those other guys all have clear roles in the offense. How does DJ Chark fit in? I don't know at this point. I mean, one snap after, because you can't even blame it on the injury report, right? He was off the injury report altogether. So to see one snap in this game was pretty surprising to me. I do think I'm going to go out on a limb right here. I don't think it's an overreaction to say we'll probably see DJ Chark be more involved in games going forward. I think there will be games where he's going to have.
I think so too.
Bold prediction, more than one snap. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised by it. Like I kept thinking like maybe he pulled something, maybe he re-aggravated something. But I kept looking for 9 on the field, and I kept not seeing him. And it turns out he only played one snap. So very interesting to see how that works. Like I said, I do think he still can bring some value. But obviously right now, they don't feel like he's one of the top 4 receivers that should be getting snaps because Jalen Reagor, Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, and Ladd McConkey are all way out snapping him. And Jim Harbaugh's telling you he doesn't feel the need to take any of those guys off the field. So we still have more to get into, including buying or selling if the toughest 5 games the Chargers have all year, not just in a row, are the 5 games they have coming up next on their schedule, and there's a really real chance of that. And we're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, where you can get tickets for this upcoming game on Sunday Night Football. And when you do go look at Game Time, make sure to check out the new feature they have called Game Time Picks. That makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Right now, you can get into this Chargers game against the Bengals in prime time, Sunday Night Football, at $55 with all-in pricing. Not only that, Jim Harbaugh is calling for you to do it. This is from Eric Smith, who said after Jim Harbaugh's press conference, he came back to the podium and he said, hey, we need those fans Sunday night. Big game at SoFi. He really credited what you guys were able to do on Sunday against the Titans, said it was the best home field advantage of the season. He wants you there, and if you are going to go to the game, make sure you check out Game Time so you can get the best price in the Game Time guarantee, meaning you'll get 110% of the difference if you find the seat on another place or in the same section in row 4 less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Dave, let's continue getting into our Chargers buy or sells here, including about this next 5 games. We're really going to see the Chargers tested by full-blown playoff teams, potentially undefeated teams, and just pretty good teams all around. There's no gimme. There's no easy game in the next 5 games the Chargers are going to play. But thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. Thank you to everyone who hit us up at Lockdown LAC. We'll be putting a post out tomorrow for our Chargers mailbag, so make sure you guys hit us up there. Or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. But thank you for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, where they have 2 shows a day. One in the morning with Tyler, the Madman Rowland, and one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop, giving you the local experts who cover their teams every day. So check out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from. David, this is a buy or sell from Daniel Wade, who says this. Buy or sell, the toughest 5 games on the Chargers schedule are all in the next 5 games. So that's not saying, hey, this is their toughest 5-game stretch. Obviously it is. We know that.
Yeah.
But are these the 5 single toughest games the Chargers have on their schedule, and they just happen to be 5 games in a row? You buying or selling that?
Unfortunately, I am buying it. This is the gauntlet right here. You know, this right here is the toughest part of the Chargers schedule, and it's gonna kind of make or break where they put themselves in the playoff hunt, right? You know, whether they're going to be squarely in that race and really, you know, assert themselves, or if they're gonna kind of fade away here. They're going up against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, Kirk Cousins, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, you know, obviously Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead, you know, with DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce and that great defense. And of course, it's Baker Mayfield, who's thrown more touchdowns than anyone in the sport, and Mike Evans, who probably is going to be making his way back by that point in time. So you're going to be going up against the best quarterbacks, the best offenses that you are going to play all season. So this defense and how well they've played is either going to get legitimized or get criticized with their performances through these next 5 games.
Yeah, I thought about selling it. I think it's close, right? Because you played the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a legitimate, bona fide good team.
They are.
You played them with Justin Fields. They look better with Russell Wilson, so maybe that's where, you kind of discount that a little bit. I think Falcons, Bucks, Steelers, probably all in the same tier. And I think the Bengals are probably better than could beat all of those teams on a given Sunday right now, and that's how you have this week. A desperate, hungry Bengals team is going to be tough. The Ravens are obviously great. 3 of the top 6 offenses you're going up against in the next 5 games. To me, I think you have to win 2 of the next 5 games to make the playoffs 100%, because your last 3 games are against Denver, who are still, just almost knocked the Chiefs off, the Raiders, who I think they will absolutely sweep this year and never look back, and the New England Patriots, who Drake May's been playing pretty good, just took down the Bears last week. They're a scrappy team. But those are easily the easiest 3 games left on the Chargers schedule as their last 3 games. If you can win 2 out of these next 5, that puts you at 8 wins. 10 wins, I think definitely... 10 wins probably gets you in, because this is the thing. The AFC, it's going to be hard for other teams to catch the Chargers. They're going into this big stretch with a big cushion, right? They're 3 games clear of the teams that are right behind them. The Colts, the Bengals, right? Those teams aren't good. The Broncos, I don't think are for real. I think they're going to fade away a little bit. And the Chargers right now are in 6th place. So, teams have to come up and pass them. It's going to be tough for them to do. If they can get 2 of these next 5 and win the last 3, that puts you at 11 wins right there. That gets you in your golden no matter what.
Yeah.
If you win 2 of the next 5 and drop one of those last 3 games, you're still at 10 wins, and that still probably gets you in, especially when you have, the closest teams to you right now are 4-6 and 4-6 and 5-5. So that's what I think it's going to take. But this, I think you could easily say, is the toughest 5 games. I don't see an easy game in there. I think those are all going to be tough games. You could be looking at 5 playoff teams. You're at least looking at 4 of them, at least in my mind. So it's going to be really tough, and I know Athir knows this upcoming game is going to be tough against the Bengals, and he thinks he knows the solution, how the Chargers can pull off the win.
Dan, David, my boys, this is Athir. I love you. Buy or sell Tuesday. The Chargers has to score at least 17 second-half points to beat the Bengals this coming Sunday. I'm buying it. What do you say? Thank you. Love you.
I love you, Athir. It's hard for me to say because I don't know how many points they've scored in the first half in this scenario. But I get what your point is. And to me, the buy or sell is this. The Chargers are going to have to put together a complete offensive performance for them to go beat the Bengals. David, are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I am going to buy it, and the pass defense better be ready. I mean, the Chargers are 6th in pass defense so far as yards allowed, and they're going up against a team that has the 2nd most passing yards per game in the league with the Bengals and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, 254.8 passing yards per contest, and they have the 6th most points per game, averaging 27 points per contest. So obviously we know the Chargers are not giving up anywhere close to that. They're only giving up 13 points a game, but they better be ready, because I don't think they have not faced a quarterback since Patrick Mahomes, which is not playing at
he's not playing
Patrick
at Joe
Mahomes
Burrow's level.
Right.
Yeah,
and Joe Burrow right now is playing at an elite level despite the lack of talent or lack of success as far as wins and losses.
I've never seen that before with a quarterback. That's pretty crazy to think of a quarterback playing extremely well and the team still being bad. That's a pretty foreign concept to me.
Yes, of course. As a Chargers fan, we know all about that with Justin Herbert and his lack of defense until this year. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really big test. The Chargers definitely need to make sure that they continue their trend of scoring points in the second half if they want to go out there and stamp this victory against the Bengals.
How could the Bengals really be good if they're 4-6? They're good, and obviously I'm saying that because it is funny because of how many people just trash Justin Herbert for just not being able to win playoff game. When it's you're seeing Joe Burrow just absolutely ball out of his mind. Him, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, easily the best 3 quarterbacks over the last several weeks.
Yeah.
And they're 4-6, and they're still losing games, which is something we're very familiar with. But yeah, the Bengals averaging 27 points per game. Obviously, you'd like Jesse Minter's defense to be able to take a couple off of that. But they're a desperate and a dangerous team that know that this is basically a borderline must-win / playoff game for the Bengals this weekend. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But let's get to this from Overduos, who says, buy or sell. This is the first time in the past few years the Chargers have been playing fun football and enjoying it with high energy, David. And when I see this, I'm buying it 100%. And I can't stop thinking about the high fives, man. After the game, post-game speech, and at one point Jim Harbaugh says, all right, everyone give everyone a high five. And the joy that these grown-ass men are showing in there as they're just high-fiving each other, doing the most basic thing of all time, and having so much fun and having that much buy-in, man. Like, it's so fun to watch.
It is, man. You could just tell everyone how much everybody in that locker room reveres Jim Harbaugh and how quirky he is and how much he relates everything back to football. And every story that he talks about, he's always bringing it back to football. And I think for me, it's just the absolute unmitigated joy that Justin Herbert is playing the game of football with this year, which has really warmed my heart because I've been waiting for him to break out of his shell and really kind of show everybody and have that kind of swagger and energy that his play, quite frankly, merits. You know, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's playing like it this year, and he's having so much fun showing that kind of animation part of himself, which I feel like should be here to stay.
It's definitely the most fun Justin Herbert we've seen him have publicly, hands down. I mean, these guys are full-blown saying for he's a jolly good fellow in the locker room after game. Now, top 5-game stretch coming up. What does it seem like when you're losing? Because that's when you get tested. It's very easy to be corny and chummy and all of those things when you're winning. And what you're hoping from Jim Harbaugh is to keep that attitude, keep that energy as the ups and downs of a season happen. But let's get to one last one here from John Clark, who says, I know we always see David Drogemeyer represent, but the buy or sell is this. Buy or sell, Dan rocks some Chargers gear on the next podcast. Well, I know what I'm going to wear on the next podcast. Well, I don't, but I know it's not going to be Chargers gear, so I'm going to sell that. What I will say is this. The Chargers win a playoff game in year 1 of Jim Harbaugh. That reaction show, I will wear Chargers gears. It might be from the mid-2000s. It might be Igor Olshansky jersey for all I know. But that is my promise to you. Go get one. Year 1 of Jim Harbaugh, you win a playoff game. Dan will wear some Chargers gear on the show. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for our Chargers mailbag and hit us up at LockedOnLAC with your questions or slide into David Drogemeyer's DMs at DroTalkSD on Twitter. You can hit me up at Dan Talk Sports. You can also call into the show like a Theor at 323-524-7924. Leave a 30-second Chargers question, and we will try our best to get it on the show. And every day, you can find the show on all of our social media. So at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page as well. But thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. And David, it's a fun week, and things are about to get real. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for our Chargers mailbag. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.